Hello there, and welcome to André Plays Unreal Botmatch. Now that I've finished my my playthrough of the single-player Unreal campaign, it's time to start exploring the maps of the multiplayer multiplayer game types and the multiplayer maps. So the first thing I should mention is that Unreal was not originally designed to be a multiplayer game. Unreal was designed first and foremost as a single-player campaign with a single-player campaign with the main Unreal campaign as its campaign. Just this single-player game where you play through this story of Unreal. However, pretty late in development, they realized, hey, wait a second, we can add on some multiplayer feature. We can add on, this ability for you to actually play with other people. And so already, late in development, already when they were making the maps, they added on, as I mentioned, certain multiplayer features to the maps. Like they made it so that certain maps, when you play the map, so you can play through the Unreal campaign single player, or you can play through the Unreal campaign as a bot match, as a co-op match. And when you do, when you play it with a co-op match, either by yourself or with other people, then when you die, instead of having to reload a save file, instead you just respawn back at the beginning of the map with the dispersion pistol and no items. But everything that you've done in the map already, all your progress, is already still there. So if you do a co-op map and you say kill half the monsters and then you get killed, then you respawn from the beginning of the map. But the map itself is still as completed as it was when you were doing it, So you don't have to complete the map again. All the monsters that you've killed are already killed, all the progress you've made has already been made. You just respawn from the beginning with just a dispersion pistol and no items. But all the progress that you've made has already been made. So the issue is, back when they first started making the single player maps, sometimes they made the map sort of like they made it so that, you would a door that you would enter and the door would shut behind you and you wouldn't be able to open it again. But then this is a problem in co-op games, because then if you died and restarted from the beginning of the map, then you would walk up to that door and you wouldn't be able to access it again. So they purposely, as I've mentioned throughout the single player campaign, they made some changes to the maps, they made some modifications to make them compatible with co-op play. So that if you are playing either by yourself or with friends as playing the maps as a co-op match, that if you do die and respawn, you can still make progress through the game. The game won't have locked you out of the progress. The game won't, you won't enter a door that will lock behind you that you can't actually access if you from the other side, because then that would cause a big problem, in trying to play these maps co-op. Another thing with the co-op game is that you don't have to play the maps in order. You can literally pick any of the single player maps and just click play and play that co-op map. And so they have to give you weapons in every map. That's why in many of these maps, like for instance, you might say, I already have all the weapons. Why do you need to give me a flak cannon or an 8-ball gun in a map? Why can't you just give me the ammo? And the answer is because in the co-op, when you're playing co-op, you pick a map and you spawn in it and you play in it, but you only start with a dispersion pistol. So they have to put some weapons in every map so that if you are playing it co-op, you can at least pick up the actual weapons to have, Because all you do is you start with the dispersion pistol no matter which map you play. Does that sort of make sense? I hope that makes sense. So yeah, you have various game types that you can play either with your friends on multiplayer, like online or on a LAN server, or with bots, although co-op doesn't work with bots. Co-op is only for by yourself or online. The bots are not programmed for co-op. The bots are only programmed for deathmatch and for fighting. And yeah, there are also deathmatch maps. There's also a bunch of maps that we have not seen yet that are specifically designed for deathmatch. So let's take a look at some of this stuff. If I open the menu, if I go multiplayer, I can go player setup to design how I look, and as I mentioned before, Gina is the default skin. It doesn't say class here. That seems to be a bit of a bug. You can only change the skin, you can't actually change your class. But you can either join a game, and you can choose from your local servers, choose from favorites. You can also go to the Epic Unreal server list, which will open a now defunct webpage where you can see a list of all the servers that are available. And in fact, in one of the later patch versions of Unreal, you can actually open something called GameSpy, which is some archaic piece of software designed for connecting to online games back in the late 90s. So as you can see, the whole software designed for connecting to online games is very old. You have to actually manually type in the IP address of the server you want to connect to, and you can go to a list of the servers to like see the IP addresses that are currently hosting servers. But it's very not user friendly, and things have changed a lot since then. Like nowadays, if you actually look at the most modern patch versions of Unreal, because see, Epic actually stopped hosting their servers back in either 2012 or 2015, or I can't remember when it was. Epic actually stopped hosting Unreal servers, and so that's when the Unreal community had to make its own patch for Unreal. 227i had to make its own patch, or just the 227 patch in general, in order for the community to still play Unreal online. Because if you had the original Unreal and you tried to connect to the online servers, they no longer existed. Epic discontinued them. So you had to so the community had to make its own patch of Unreal, its own version of Unreal that connected to its own special master servers, so that they hosted, so that you could continue to play Unreal online, and this still exists today. Still today, when you play Unreal online in 2021, you can still connect to like Newbies Playground servers or old Unreal servers, as opposed to the Epic's original servers. But anyway, one thing I want to mention is, so Unreal was not actually designed for multiplayer. However, once Unreal came out, Epic suddenly realized that multiplayer was a huge market, that they could really do a lot of stuff with multiplayer. And one of Unreal's competitors, which was Quake 2, I believe it was, actually had a better multiplayer system than Unreal. Because the original Unreal's multiplayer system is not that great. It's very primitive. There are a bunch of mods that you can download which do improve it somewhat, which I haven't downloaded because I'm playing original Unreal here. But for the most part, the original Unreal's multiplayer system is very primitive. So after the original Unreal came out, Epic started working on a new expansion pack called the Bot Pack, which was going to improve the bot matches in the multiplayer system. And they worked on it for about a year or so before releasing it in 1999. And the thing is though, is that eventually they were like, hey, wait a second, this expansion pack we're putting so much content in it, we might as well release it as its own whole game. And so instead of releasing it as an expansion pack for Unreal, they released it as its own whole game called Unreal Tournament. And eventually, Unreal Tournament became far more well known than Unreal, and far more famous than Unreal. And the original Unreal fell into obscurity, and everyone just knows Unreal Tournament. Although nowadays, even Unreal Tournament has fallen into obscurity. But Unreal Tournament is effectively a total conversion of Unreal. It grew out of an expansion pack that they were making for Unreal, that they eventually decided to make into its own whole game. Anyway, let's take a look at, so I went multiplayer. We can look at join game. I mentioned that you have to actually type in the IP address of a server, which we're not going to do now. You can go start game, you can set up a game, you can launch a dedicated server, so you can do a couple of things. You can configure the game options and stuff, which I'm not going to do right now. But I'm going to go to, if you go game and go bot match, what does game options do? Okay, yeah, that's fine. If I go bot match, we can start to talk about the different types of game. So first of all, I should mention that there are special maps. So far, all the maps that we've been playing we've been playing all the maps from the co-op game, all the maps in the single-player campaign. However, for most of the game modes in bot matches, there are a special set of maps. They all start with DM for deathmatch, like DM Ariza, DM Curse, DM Deathfan, DM Death 16, DM Elsinore, DM Fist, DM Healpod, DM Morbius, DM Radicus, DM Tundra. So these are special maps, which we have not seen yet. However, they still use the same textures as the original Unreal maps. So they will look like things we're familiar with. They might look like a gnarly temple, or a scar ship, or a scar processing plant, or whatever. They will look like the environments that we are familiar with, but rather than having a beginning and an end and having monsters, they will just be their entirely self-contained maps with no beginning and end, just with a bunch of spawn points around them with weapons strategically placed, and there are no monsters in them. They're just all precisely for humans or bots to spawn in and fight each other. Next, I should start to talk about the different types of games. So we have deathmatch game, team game, co-op game, King of the Hill, and dark match. So deathmatch game is the basic type of game that a deathmatch is. It's the basic type of bot match you have. A deathmatch is simply, you have a bunch of players, either they're humans or they're bots or they're people that you meet online, and basically you all fight each other, and it's a free-for-all. Everyone's trying to kill each other, and the first person to so many frags wins. A frag is basically you get a frag for killing someone, and you lose a frag if you kill yourself. But you don't lose a frag if someone else kills you. They just get a frag. So basically, it's just a free-for-all killing match where you're just trying to kill everyone else, and when you die, you just respawn with a dispersion pistol. So death is very impermanent. If you die, you just respawn. It's all good. Team game is like a deathmatch, except instead of it being free-for-all, there are teams. In Unreal, you can have up to 4 teams. Their colors are red, blue, green, and gold. And so you have, you have these 4 teams, although you can just play it with 2 teams. And basically, it's instead of you trying to just kill everyone, instead you are just trying to kill people on opposite teams. And when you score points, you score points for your team. But other than that, it's the same as deathmatch, same basic idea. It's just a free-for-all. No, sorry, not free-for-all, but basically you're trying to kill everyone on the other teams, and you're trying to get the first person to so many kills wins. Or it could be a time limit. It could be whichever team has the most frags within a certain time limit wins. Next is co-op game. Unlike the other types, co-op matches may be played not only in the DM maps, but they may be played in all the other maps. So as you can see, we can see all the other usual maps from the single player can be played with co-op match. So co-op match basically means play through one of the maps of Unreal as a team. So co-op is cooperative, it's not competitive. I should mention deathmatch is competitive, because it's you against everyone else. Team deathmatch is competitive in teams. Each team is cooperative, so you're working together as a team, but each team is competitive against the other teams. Each team is trying to win. Co-op is completely competitive, so all the players are trying to work together. Bots cannot play in co-op match. You can't actually do bots, because the bots are not that well programmed to be able to play co-op games. But the bots in Unreal only know how to kill each other. They don't, and only know how to navigate through the DM maps. They're not able to navigate through the actual campaign maps. So basically, a co-op campaign is where you basically play through one of the maps of Unreal, like one of the maps of the single player campaign, as a group. So, like I mentioned, you actually play through it, and you spawn in the beginning with just a dispersion pistol and no items. And if you kill a monster, that monster's dead. And then if you die, you basically just respawn from the beginning, but the map does not reset. The map does not reset. All the progress you've made in the map stays. All the buttons you've pressed are pressed. All the monsters you've killed are killed. You just respawn at the beginning of the map with the dispersion pistol. And depending on the settings, you know, it may be that the weapons don't actually disappear. The weapons you pick up actually, let me check if you play a configured game. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure actually when you do play a co-op game, the weapons actually, like, all the items, if you pick, like, every item that you pick up is a once-off item except for the weapons. So if you pick up like a health or an ammo or an armor, it just disappears. So those are only once-off, even in a co-op game. But the weapons, if you pick them up, they don't disappear. They actually respawn. However, you cannot pick them up again, but other players can. This way, multiple players can pick up the same weapon, and it just makes it more fair. It makes it so that, you know, instead of one player picking up a weapon and that weapon being unavailable for anyone else to pick up in the game, basically you play a co-op match, and you see a weapon there, and you can pick it up, and then other players can pick up that weapon as well. But once you pick up a weapon, you cannot pick up that same weapon from its spawn point, if that makes sense. This will be familiar to anyone who has played Unreal Tournament or any of the later Unreal Tournament games, where they do a similar mechanic where if you pick up a weapon for the first time, you get it, but then if you see that weapon again like a second time and you already have it, you don't pick up another copy of it. Instead, it's just you can't pick it up again. But anyone else can pick it up, and once you pick it up, someone else will pick it up immediately, and it doesn't disappear. But so that's a co-op game, and so you're trying to basically, once one person reaches the end of the map, then the map finishes for everyone, so all you need is one person to reach the end. Although, of course, this has changed in some mods. There are some mods people have made where you can, like, vote for the end or whatever. But in general, it's one person reaches the end, ends the map, and then you all move on to the next map in sequence. And you can basically play through the single-player campaign of Unreal, or your custom campaign of Unreal, if you want to play through custom co-op maps, together as a team, fighting the monsters together as a team. And yeah, it's all team-based. It's all you are playing as a team against the monsters, trying to play through the campaign maps. Next you have King of the Hill. King of the Hill is an interesting. It's like semi-cooperative, semi-competitive version of Deathmatch. Basically, in King of the Hill, it's basically the first person. It starts off as just a normal deathmatch. The first person to kill someone becomes the king, and then everyone teams up against the king. So basically, it is competitive. Like the scoring is competitive. You want to get the most points, and you want to get more points than everyone else. But you can only get points by killing the king. So while there is a king, if you kill one of the other players that's not the king, you actually lose points. Instead, you and all the other players have to gang up on the one player who is the king, and whoever kills them gets a bunch of points. And when you are the king, if you kill players, you get a bunch of points. So basically, it's like this mode was, I think, called Mutant Mode in later Unreal tournaments. So this mode, yeah, it is called. It does come back again in Unreal Tournament called Mutant. But basically, it's like yeah, one player who is the king or the mutant or whatever is the center of attention, and you only get points by either being the king of the hill and killing people, or by killing the king. So it's like a bit asymmetric, you know. It's like focus all on one player at a time, and this is just played through all the usual deathmatch maps. Lastly, you have Darkmatch. Darkmatch is a sort of, Darkmatch is basically the same as Deathmatch, but with a bit of a twist. Basically, the twist is that it's all dark and everyone starts with a searchlight. So it sort of was inspired by the Darkening. So instead of just a normal deathmatch with normal light, it's basically you're playing in this dark map where there's very little lighting or no lighting, and everyone spawns with a searchlight, and you're playing this dark match in darkness. Later in Unreal Tournament, this would have just been done with a mutator. So in later Unreals, in Unreal Tournament, and in Unreal 227, in the Unreal 227 patch for Unreal Gold, there are things called mutators, where instead of having to make a whole new game type, you can just like add on these individual mutators, which can add on like their own specific modular features onto your deathmatch. So you can be like, I want a deathmatch with this feature and with this feature, and so instead of having to make a whole new game type, you can just add on this mutator that just modifies a small feature of it. But in the original Unreal, there were no mutators, it was not a thing yet. So in order to make a change like this dark match, they had to create a whole new game type for it. And that's basically it. Deathmatch, team game, co-op game, King of the Hill, and dark match. Co-op game is sort of like the odd one out, where you can play through the normal maps as well. Although dark match you can only play through the dark match maps, which will start with DK, of which there's only one that comes with Unreal, and it was never very popular. Like, I don't know if anyone ever made any other dark match maps, because it just was never a very popular game type. It sort of fell into obscurity even among the players of original Unreal, and no one really plays it. But it was a thing. Anyway, let me just look through configure game to see what we can do. There's game speed. You can choose the speed of the game. Reduce score. You can reduce the score. You can go frag limit and time limit to choose the limit of how many kills and how much time. You can choose max players. You can do co-op weapon mode. So this is what I was mentioning. In co-op weapon mode, it says, if co-op weapon mode is enabled, weapons respawn instantly but can only be picked up once by a player. So that's what I was saying, is that basically if co-op weapon mode is off, that means it's like the original Unreal. If you see a weapon, you can pick it up and then you get that weapon. But weapons take time to respawn. Because like in Deathmatch, as you mentioned, in co-op, things don't respawn except for weapons. In Deathmatch, everything respawns after a certain amount of time. So for instance, if you pick up whether it's a health item or an armor item or a weapon, after a minute or so it will respawn. If co-op weapon mode is enabled, then the weapons will respawn instantly, but they can only be picked up one time per player. Whereas if co-op weapon mode is off, then weapons can be picked up as many times as you like, but of course they will take a while to respawn just like any other item. Number of bots. You can configure the bots. You can auto adjust the skills. You can actually turn the skills on and off. So yeah, I'm just thinking what I want for this. I'm gonna go, my frag limit could be say 15. If I were to play this, co-op weapon mode, I might just set it to true. I mean, in later Unreals, it's always set to true, but I can set it to false. I could play with it false. I think true makes it a bit more balanced, because then you're not stranded for weapons. Because if it's false, then you have to wait for weapons to spawn, so you could be stuck without weapons. I think true makes it a bit more fair. 4 bots is fine. You can go configure bots. You can auto adjust bot skill. You can choose the base skill, like easy, medium, hard, or unreal. I might just go hard, maybe. You can configure the individual bots, so you can actually look through the individual bots and configure their properties, and like change their skin, change their class, change their skill, that sort of thing. Yeah. To be honest, even if the base skill is 1, I might not do that well. I don't know. Like I said, the bots here are actually pretty good. Like, they're not amazing compared to like modern AI, but compared to AI at the time, they're pretty good. They do act more or less like human players, and they are cleverly designed. And the maps, the actual maps themselves have what are called, I can't remember what they're called. Like, they actually have like nodes, so that the bots follow. So instead of the bots running around randomly, the bots actually follow pre-programmed paths through the map to pick up the guns, to pick up items. So the bots know where to go. The bots know how to pick up items. The bots know how to navigate the map. But it's actually quite well designed. Let's get into the bots. Random order. Let's do random order true. Base skill 2. Auto adjust skills true. Yeah, that seems pretty good. So yeah, then I would just go start match and we would play through the match. Anyway, I think I've explained the basic idea of how it works. Let's see what's in game options. Okay. Yeah, I think I've explained the basic idea of how it works. What's in these options? Auto aim, false, disable, false. Yep, all good. Yeah, so I think I've explained the essence of multiplayer and of bot matches and everything. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Next video I make, I'll start to actually play through the individual maps. I'll show off the maps and then play the maps with bots, and we'll play through a bot match against bots. So yeah. See you then. See you for next video. Bye.